Welcome to the Live to Lift Up podcast. This is a heartfelt audio series created in loving memory of Sandy Mohanathan. On each episode, we share real stories about how Sandy touched lives, inspired others, and created a ripple of goodness in the world around her. Through these conversations, we celebrate her legacy and remind all our listeners that each of us can all lift up in our own unique ways. Why lift up? Before I get into that acronym, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Danielle Mohanathan, and I am Sandy's daughter. And today, I'm delighted to welcome onto our show, Jihad. Hi, Jihad.
Hey, hi there.
So, why lift up? It's a very special acronym, where the L stands for love, unconditional love, because Sandy, Mom, loved freely, without limits or expectation. I is to inspire through her kindness, because she inspired others not through her words, but through her actions. The F is foster, growth, and harmony, leaving everything and everyone better than how she found it, because she believed in nurturing people and spaces to bring out their best. The T is for together, because together we lift as we rise, and she lived by the belief that when one of us rises, we bring others with us. The U is for universal, because she was a global citizen, and she loved beyond boundaries, faith, culture, or background, and she saw everyone as connected. And the P is for passion, because my goodness, did that woman live with passion. And she lived wholeheartedly in her faith, creativity, and the things that she loved. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome once again Jihad. Thank you so much, Jihad, for joining us. How are you doing today, Jihad?
I'm well, Danielle. Good to see you.
Good. Yeah, likewise. So I would like to start off this conversation by asking you to share a little bit about who you are, your background. I would like to give our listeners a bit of context and background onto who you are.
All right. I'm. My name is Jihad Bsaibes. I'm Lebanese. I was born in Lebanon. Never really lived in Lebanon. Raised as a child in Kuwait. Moved to the U.S. for my high school and university. Spent some time there. Moved back to the Middle East. Came to Dubai in 2000 and worked in Amana contracting ever since till 2025, so 25 years into it. Married, happily married. My wife Sandra, got three kids. Me as in university in Glasgow. Jad is in his last year of high school, and Layla is a 15-year-old teenager still in school. So that's in summary. I live in Dubai. I visit Scotland frequently. Throughout my career in Amana, my last stint for the last 10 years in Amana, I was the Group CEO, and that's where I met. Sandy back in October 2022. That kind of sums it. Engineer, I'm a mechanical engineer by education. That pretty much sums it up.
Thank you, Jihad. I met you around the time that Mom did, through the introduction, and I didn't know a fraction of what you've shared. And what I love about you and your journey, etc., is your universal existence and habitation and movements and exposure. And I'm pretty sure that that's added to a very colorful, richer life, and the kinds of conversations Mom and you must have had during her time here on earth. So thank you for sharing all of that so freely, and the love for your wife and your family. And just out of curiosity, did Mom ever get to meet your children?
She definitely met Sandra. She knows Sandra well, both socially, in person, and online. Because Sandra currently lives in Scotland, but we've went out as couples with your mom and Claude and Sandra and myself. Socially, they knew each other. Yeah, I would say Sandy knew Sandra quite well, and they used to compare notes on a few subjects. The kids, I don't think they've met. I don't recall the kids meeting Sandy because they live in Scotland, and I visit back and forth. They didn't have that much time to meet up with Sandy.
Beautiful, thank you. So you had mentioned you met Mom in
2022. I'll give you the story on it. We had hired a headhunter as a company. I mean, we're a construction company and we're renowned to be, our segment in general is not the most advanced when it comes to human capital. So as a company, we had a good system, but we chose that we want to push the envelope and we want to go beyond our construction segment and really invest in our human capital function. We've hired headhunters. We kept scouting the market for a good year. We couldn't land on a candidate we're comfortable with. And then luckily, one of our colleagues had worked earlier with Sandy, and he kind of suggested that we get to meet Sandy. So the first time we met, I was hit by COVID. So I was pretty sick, hit hard behind the screen at home. And the board had a meeting with Sandy in Amana. So on the screen, what Sandy later told me that I came across as quite dry in the interview, which later, when she got to know me, I might look very dry, but that's actually not my character at all. So we met. So we met online. I asked some questions, and sometimes when you're an executive, maybe you get a bit more abrasive in interviews than the board. So I might have gotten a bit rough maybe on the questions at the time. So I came through as the driest of the panel. And she told me that when I ended up meeting with her in person. So I recovered from COVID, and then the first time interview was in May, if I recall correctly, and then we met up in June before we broke for the summer, and we met in person, and we met in the hotel across from the company. And when I sat with her, then we had a lengthy sit down and gave all the backgrounds. And what was interesting to me at the time is when I sat with her, she's already met most of her team, knows them on first name basis, and very eager to start. And mind you, she never really started till October. So we sat in June, we compared notes, we shared what each of us expected of the other. Because equally, I mean, with someone like Sandy and her profile, equally, the company was interviewing her and she was interviewing the company. So it was a two-way interview. Both of us had to be very candid and very clear on what the terrain would look like. And I would say, it was a good meeting, a very positive meeting. Ended up working together for 3 years. And what I liked about that meeting is she was very eager to start. You can see the passion, and you know your mother very well. You can see the passion in her wanting just to start running. And I remember in the first interview we had with her, and earlier we did a reference check. I forgot a gentleman that works for Accenture, I think. I forgot his name. Very articulate man. And he told us at the time, it's like, look, all the good references on Sandy, but she has the tendency to take on board, to chew more than she can swallow, that she take on board more than she can handle. She doesn't say no easily. And yeah, I saw that I saw that when I first met her. She's very eager to start running in many directions. And you can see the passion in her. And that was one of the reasons that we saw in her what we expected from a CHRO at the time.
Wow. I love the story for so many reasons. Firstly, Jihad, to be told off the bat that you're dry during an interview scenario, I think takes a very special human to just call it out like that. And that's, to share with you, that was Mom. She was very consistent in that way, and that she would just call things out as she saw it. And I suppose that's not for everybody, but if it's meant to be, and it works beautifully. And you know, to the point around passion that you raised, absolutely. Mom never did anything half measured, whether in a personal capacity or a professional capacity. And I'm sure as you'd shared, you'd had headhunters and recruiters and many people looking for somebody to fill this role as CHRO. And I'm sure that's no easy feat, particularly to have found the right fit. But you shared the construction business and the company that was Amana in 2022 is more, was more of a traditional organization back then. So I'm very curious to ask, when Mom came in with her, I suppose, her authenticity and that energy and that passion, what did that strike you as? What did it make you feel for going, this is a traditional environment and agency, and we're bringing on somebody with all of this passion and a different way of being. How did that make you feel, truly?
All right, I'll answer that in two capacities. One, when I was the CEO, and then by the end of 25, I handed over my duties to my successor, who was a longtime colleague of mine. And then I saw Sandy through the eyes of being a board member. I've interacted with her in two very different capacities. On the get go, and as I mentioned earlier, construction in general, not necessarily the company we're in, construction in general is not very advanced when it comes to human capital, putting the right appraisals, putting the right systems around it, the ITPs, and all the good stuff to make sure that you attract, retain, grow, and develop people. So when Sandy joined us, I would tell you the first impressions was she's definitely a strong character. She had no issues being in a room with a bunch of good old boys, because in construction, I mean, it starts from university. You hardly, at least in my time, you hardly had female engineers, not a long time ago. And when you get in construction, it's not very common. So she walks into a room, and that's the executive committee, and it's all good old boys club, and she's the only lady there, and she most definitely made her presence very clear. So strong character, not easy to rattle her. Mind you, we tried many times, but she definitely can hold her. She can hold her own, and she can take it and she'll give it back to you. And that's the dynamic that I would say was most valuable to get us out of our comfort zone and get us to be open to what she had to offer and to bring to the table. I would say those were the first impressions we've had of Sandy. As we got to know her more, definitely you can see the care element. She genuinely cared in growing leaders. So she was interested not only in the transactional part of work. She took pride and what she called her legacy in developing leaders. She was definitely very dedicated to her work. She wanted to achieve, and really, as they say, chapeau bas to your father, who at many times had to wait in the parking until Sandy finished what she wanted to finish at the day. And I remember when she first joined, she's like, Jad, look, I'll work hard. Hours don't matter to me. But sometimes I might just say, look, I've had enough for the day. I want to go watch a movie with my husband. And that would be in the middle of the day. And that's very uncommon in construction. But then when she started work and you see her at the grind, and she's staying longer hours and finishing what she had to finish and bringing people together. And then every now and then it's like, look, Jad, today I'm just gonna not come into the office. Like, look, please don't come. Recharge the batteries. Everything has a defined limit. So go recharge your batteries and come back. But that definitely, I would say, the impressions she left on us. She introduced Clifton Strengths. So basically, it's a psychometric, one of hundreds or maybe thousands of psychometric tests that tells you who you are as a person. I don't know, maybe she's done it for you guys as a family. But I remember when she did that and we started looking at our traits, and you can see she's Sandri, bless her, she was an influencer. She was quick to break the ice with people. She was an achiever. For that you saw those traits in her, and then she showed it to us scientifically. And then when we did our own Clifton Heights, and then she gave us her insight into it, it was, I would say, very powerful moments. Reviewing those psychometric assessments with her of ourselves as individuals and ourselves as teams.
I love how you captured both sides. And you almost integrated the two. There's the the love aspect and the care aspect of how she could give that tough love, but you saw the genuine human side of who this woman was. But then also the inspirational side for how she was able to bring Clifton Strengths. And yes, as a family, we're very familiar with Clifton Strengths. I myself am a former Accenture South Africa and Middle East employee, so that's also part of my DNA. And being able to bring that into Amana, and I suppose foster growth in terms of understanding better the community that she was part of, I think is such an amazing quality. I often think of mom as HR was who she was. At the core of her being and her DNA, that was absolutely what she was meant to do on this planet. And it's really inspiring to hear that it made an impact. It made a difference. That, this unshakable woman was able to bring both sides of herself to a construction environment in such an authentic way that made the difference and supported each of you to get to where you needed to go, for the goals set out. I absolutely know this about mom. I mean, Jihad, to share with you, when I lived in the Middle East with mom and dad in 2023, and I would often come to fetch mom with dad, and sit in the car and watch the lights and the sun go down and people leaving and going, where is she, and phoning her, no, I'm almost done. I think even one day I went up to her office and I said, hi mom, we're here. Are you sure you're almost done? And that dedication is actually such a great quality. And I think to all of these points that you've raised and the stories that you're so authentically sharing from your side, your perspective, Jihad, thank you. I want to know from you, you could have hired anyone, right? I'm sure you had many pickings by the dozen to fill the CHRO role. But in understanding what mom came in as and what she achieved and supported the business with, and all of you as her team members, what would you say make up a phenomenal CHRO? What are the qualities that stand out for you that mom truly encompassed, that would mark her as one of the best?
Look, I will answer it with a different twists. I would say what made us go for to select Sandy, and obviously she accepted at the time, is on a board level, they realize this is a person that stands their grounds. This is a person that can understand hierarchy in a company, but what's right is right and what's wrong is wrong. And for the board, when it came to human capital, it was very important for for the board to ensure that the culture in the company is safeguarded. It's a family owned business. The family was gradually coming out of the management and handing it over to professionals. So the checks and balances between operations, CFO, CHRO, you wanted those healthy checks and balances. So what pushed it over the line for the board at the time was Sandy is someone that can hold their grounds, that's someone that would speak up, and someone that cannot be professionally dominated, not to say what she truly believes. And she definitely exhibited those traits very explicitly. That was one of the strongest things shown. Look, for a successful CHRO, and no one's perfect. Every person is weak on one side, strong on the other. Sandy was exceptionally strong when it came to people relations, to influencing people, to giving that warm, cozy feeling when you get into her office, where she will make best of your balconies, as she would call it, and then she will give you the tough love with your basements. That was very evident with her. But if I were to give advice for a general CHRO, is look, first, know the science. It is human capital is a science, so know your science. Uh, Compose a team that's effective working with each other and know how best to manage them. Uh, Make sure that you build good relations with your stakeholders, so you're able to influence them. because in human capital, it's very easy to point things going wrong with human capital because it covers so much, and it's so sensitive to so many. So know your science, pick the right team, make them work well together, make sure you have a strong bond and able to influence your stakeholders. Uh, Give tough love when it's necessary, and that strengthens the bond with time. And like any function, you should have operational excellence. Be diligent in getting things done. Now, every great CHRO is strong in some, weak in others, and the best of CHROs that know where the weakness is, and they complement it through the team members that are on their team. And that's the advice I would generally give for a solid CHRO. And for Sandy,
Brilliant.
I believe her strongest part was establishing trust and people genuinely believing that she takes pride in developing leaders. That meant a lot to her, and it's evident on how she interacted with people.
Could you share possibly a personal example for how she built that trust? How did she build that connection?
I would say it'll be several. I'll say one which is on personal interaction with me. Is when we got the Clifton Heights, and as a CEO at the time, I took the comparison with all of the team, all of our team, that's our direct reports. And you can see the relationship builders, the strategists, all that stuff, the good stuff. And I'm looking at several traits, and I was looking at just abnormalities. And there was one trait that the rest of the team, with the Clifton strengths, you go from 1 up all the way to 35, I think. So the lower the number, the more dominant that trait is in you. And I was looking at the overall team and how the spread are. And there was one trait that was an anomaly because with the whole team, it was ranging between 22 to 35. So it's like a trait that's not very evident in the team. For me, it was number 3. So when I looked at it, I was like, oh boy. And I remember telling Sandy at the time, and the trait was harmony. I told Sanders, look, as a human, I'm very proud, but as a CEO, I'm very concerned. Harmony in leading a company is it's not the best of traits, and it kind of it caught me off guard. And she's like, no, hold on, look at the rest of the team. You got the executors, you got the relationship builders, you got the strategists, you got the influencers, but harmony is the glue that puts them together. And that's really an asset you have within the team, Jihad. So don't overlook that. It's an angle I never looked at, and I was like, "Ooh, wow, that could make some sense." And then I started reflecting back on dynamics, and especially when I started with the transition to pass it on to my successor. It was a great guy doing lovely work and worked together for a long time. And at the time, just speaking with the teams that okay, I'm transitioning out. It was done over a year, very smooth. And that I never was in tune to it, but then the team members were like, Jihad, I mean, nothing's going to change. We're all part of the same team, but you kind of kept us together tight. Let's hope the next leadership will do the same. And now I take that in the context of how she explained it as glue at the time. I was like, all right, so scientifically, actually, that does make some sense. So that at the time to me was very powerful. Then now I'm glad to see that the team is doing a great job, and actually I just got out of their way and they're just moving even faster, which gives me pride as it gave Sandy to develop leaders. Now I take pride that the team kind of got out of their way and they're doing bigger and better things. So that's the right way to do it.
Oh, magic, because exactly like the T in Lift Up says, together, that harmonious factor is such an important thing, and it's a great example that you shared, so thank you. And I appreciate how when somebody might have seen something in themselves as a weakness or nothing to write home about, she really did see a different perspective and was able to rather flip it around and show you that no, this is actually a really great thing. Even to have it as a a hindsight moment, like you're saying, you thought about it in reflection and went, but if she'd never had that conversation with me, you would have never seen it that way potentially and seen it as a strength, which it is. Harmony is incredibly important, right? To keep people together. So it's another value that comes through so strongly. And I suppose it's not the easiest. Like you said, she was courageous to be able to have those kinds of conversations. That was consistent with her. And I'm really glad that you've shared that, because I feel a lot of what our listeners could take out from a conversation like this as well is be yourself, be comfortable in your skin, know your craft. That concept of mastering your craft, and like you said, CHRO is a science, so know your stuff. And I think that learner factor in her was so strong, and she never stopped learning. She lived by the value of continuous learning, and I'm grateful that also came through in how she coached and kept it going right in her time. And I think, to the point of loving parts about her, and on a both personal and professional, whatever example or experience comes to mind, Jihad, but what did you love most about Mom?
Her door was always open, and she showed care professionally and personally.
Is there anything else apart from showing that care? Was there anything else that you could possibly go, actually this changed my life fundamentally?
I would say categorizing balconies and basements and really putting the context of developing as a person, and when she guides you and assists you in doing that. Because I mean, construction, like I guess most industries, I mean, it's a rough and tough industry. It's a lot of risks to manage, people to manage, constraints to work within. That's part of your day to day. And when you get into that mechanical mode of doing things, you want to just get things done and do what you have to do. But to take a step back and say, look, in the context of what's going through your mind at this moment, what's a balcony and what's a basement, and what do you need to pivot and what do you need to improve on, and you put it in such a context, I found that to be very helpful, very impacting. Where basement, it is what it is. Just make sure you're aware of it, and then you can work around it, versus beating yourself up on how you approach things. Because every person is going to always be second guessing themselves to a point, or just taking the decisions and running with it. I mean, life is all about juggling those. It helps you when you look at the context of what you're strong in and what you need development in.
Jihad, I really want to give gratitude to the conversation we've had today. You've shared so much that paints such a wonderful, fuller picture of Mom in a professional and intertwined in a personal capacity. The examples, from when you first met her all the way to 3 years later, have been so real. I can actually, through your storytelling, I get a different or an additional layer of who Mom was. So thank you for sharing everything so freely. This has been a great conversation. And to wrap this all up, we have a signature question that we ask each of our guests before we close off. And that is, who in your life has lifted you up, and how are you lifting others today?
Well, I would say what lifts me up, my wife and kids. And what I've recently came to understand more is that nothing in life is permanent. Nothing. Nothing good is permanent. Nothing bad is permanent. What counts is how you deal with what you deal with right now. That understanding of non-permanence has been a boost and lifting me up. I don't know if that answers your question.
It does, thank you. And that's pretty profound, the temporariness of life. So make the most of it, in other words. Thank you for that. And again, Jihad, thank you for your time. And it's been great having you here and having this conversation. And to our production assistant, Vic, thank you for continuing to do a phenomenal job and supporting us in the background. It matters, it means something. You are greatly appreciated. To Dad, Claude Mohanathan, and Pranay for the ideation behind this inspiring podcast and to keep Sandy Mohanathan's legacy alive. Thank you. And to each and every one of our listeners for giving off your time to tune in on whether it's Apple, whether it's Spotify, whether it's YouTube. Please like, subscribe, share, engage with us. But thank you to each and every one of you, because without all of you, this would not be possible. So on that note, thank you for joining us, and may you continue to lift up.